Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kaleidoscope of the Arts. I'm your host, Marie LaBrosse. My co-host, I don't know where she's at, Dee Dee Gozian. And today's our special day with our special co-host, Jim Shirley, who is the Executive Director of the Arts and Cultural Alliance of Sarasota County. Now, before I bring Jim up, I just want to acknowledge our sponsor of the show, and that's Wendy Namick from Namick Portfolio Investment Professionals, LLC. You can reach Wendy by going to her website, www.namack.com. That's NAMACK. And her phone number is 941-429-2911. You can always email Wendy at namack.com. Thank you so much, Wendy, and all of you sponsors that sponsored us with Kaleidoscope of the Arts, an intoxicating evening of discovery into the arts of Northport. I had you there, didn't I? Before we get going, I'd like to acknowledge all of the people and the volunteers that did help put that event together. Without a team, you can't do events. So thank you, all of you that did help. And with that being said, here's a man that actually came and spoke to the group and told us how important the arts are to your county, to your city, and to your area. Jim Shirley, thank you for coming on, and thank you for being our guest speaker.
Well, you're welcome, Marie. It was my privilege. You guys put on a tremendous event down there. I was really impressed and impressed by your everything that you did, your entertainment, your audience, and your volunteers. It was quite an event, and it's really good to see that sort of activity going on in the Northport area.
And the best is yet to come, too, Jim. It's Absolutely. Just the beginning. You have to start someplace, and that's where we started. And like I told the volunteers of my team, I said, we can never go down. You set the bar high, and you go higher. So that's what we started to do. So, Jim, tell me about what's going on with the Arts and Cultural Alliance, and how's everything going with you guys there?
Well, it's a lot of work all the time, Marie. We, as you know, the last 2 years have been very challenging for particularly people in the performing arts, as well as in all of our museums and galleries. Just dealing with the day-to-day mechanisms of COVID and getting people together. But I'm very happy to say that things are coming back nicely. As you know, in Sarasota County, we have adapted a set of safe arts protocols to use for getting people together so that people can be assured that they are as safe as they can be as we're coming back, and audiences are really responding to it. Everybody is, building. We're not at 100% yet, but we're able to get back together to do a lot of the performing arts work, a lot of the gallery work that we've been doing. And so it's just been a lot of hard work to make all that happen. But the community and all of the support structure for the arts in our region, the foundations and the donors, the philanthropists have all pulled together to help us come back as well as we can, and things are moving very nicely in that direction.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. I do have a question about the Sarasota Safe Arts within the community and the county. Uh-huh. One of the things, and I had this come up for our event that we just did, because of some of the protocol, the laws in place, or whatever the governor had put in place, we were afraid of enacting some of those, of getting fined. Yeah. How does that affect that?
We gave a lot of thought to making sure that happens. And what with the governor's mandates in Florida right now, you're not allowed to ask a person if they have been vaccinated. But so what we do is we just simply, as a group, have our protocols that to attend a live event, that you must show proof of a negative test, through the testing mechanisms that are there. is required. But if you can't do that or do not want to do that, if you elect to show that you have been vaccinated, you may do that as an alternative. So it's not a mandate that you have to be vaccinated. You can just show a negative test, and that's great. Or you can show voluntarily that you've been vaccinated, and that meets the requirements. And then people are, in most of the cases, people are required to wear a mask while they're there.
Okay. And that really actually answers the question that I was asking. I probably should have asked that before, but I think it was okay. I mean, the way that it was. So Jim, who's your guest today? Because I'm really excited. I met him just off screen right now, but I'm excited because he's actually a celebrity in his own world.
He certainly is. One of the great things about the region of the country that we live in Sarasota County, Venice, Northport, Sarasota, Manatee County, we have an unusually active and rich arts and cultural scene. And so much of it gets enriched by the people who come here and bring their talents to our area. They may or may not live here all the time. And we have just an enormous number of people who have been and are very accomplished in all parts of the world that come here to be a part of our art scene. And my guest today is one of those people. I'm bringing on today Troy Quinn, who is the music director and the conductor for the Venice Symphony, right there in just north of Northport. And Troy, welcome, and thank you for coming on with us today.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for having me on your show. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, for our audience, to give you an idea of how our world has developed, Troy is coming to us live from Los Angeles today, where he lives. And in addition to being the conductor and director of the Venice Symphony, Troy, I understand you are also the conductor and director of the Owensboro, Kentucky Symphony. Is that correct?
I am. Yes, I am,
Yeah.
Jim. And I'm also the pops conductor of the Rhode Island Philharmonic. So I have all the bases covered.
He's nationwide. Yeah, I love it. Well, and I think that's one of the things that's so important for us today is that we can have access to people like Troy, like you, and have you be able to share your talents with us 3,000 miles away, but you do come here and you're here quite often. As a matter of fact, I believe this is your 4th season with the Venice Symphony. Is that correct?
It is, Jim. Yeah, I know we got cut a little bit short with COVID, but technically this is my 4th year.
Incredible. Well, one of the things I like to do on this show, Troy, is to be able to let our audience not only get to know your organizations and what's happening in the arts here, but we like to give them a look at the people behind the arts and how did this come about? How did things develop? Would you share with us a little bit about your background and how a guy who at least finished your master's degree or doctorate, I'm sure, in California, ends up being the conductor in Venice, Florida, and Owensboro, Kentucky. How did that happen? What was your route?
Kismet. I guess it was just Jim. Really, my route was sort of unorthodox. My background is as a singer and a pianist, and I got into orchestral conducting later in my musical career. I wasn't even supposed to be a musician. I was supposed to be a weatherman. And I joke.
You could do that,
The storm coming through with a high. I'm in the business of communication, so it is ironic that I was supposed to be into communication in my college years, and that's what I do. It's just in a musical term now, so and in a musical way. But my background, I grew up in New Haven, Connecticut. Loved music, had music going on in the house from my parents. They were not professional musicians, but music was a part of our everyday life, Jim. And that instilled in me this love for it and this unquenchable thirst to pursue it. I came to music later. I studied in college and majored in music and voice and opera. Actually, I have a degree in opera performance as well.
Really?
And I went to Manhattan School of Music and continued doing my master's degree, and then I went out to USC in LA here for my doctorate in conducting. And then I stayed and became pretty active in the studios and film and television in Hollywood, working there, singing and conducting. and now I'm also on the faculty at USC where I teach conducting. So it's a full circle route. That,
Really crazy. Yeah.
that happened in a very short amount of time, about 10 years, which is relatively short. But the jobs came up in Venice, in Kentucky, and I went for it. I had no connection in either place, and certainly I'm a beach guy, and I love the humidity, and so you don't have to convince me anymore. But the real reason Venice was so appealing to me, Jim, is the potential for greatness there, and the trajectory we're on. When I came in, it was sort of a glorified and very good community group orchestra.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for the audience, many of us have watched the Venice Symphony evolve over the years. And I'm going to get to that in a few minutes because I want to spend some time with you on that. But let me ask you, going back a little bit, growing up then in singing and music, was there a seminal moment? Was there a time in your educational career when you said, well, I'm going to get into music now, as opposed to just singing?
Right. Yes, there was. And it happened here in Los Angeles. I wasn't living at the time, but I came on vacation with my folks. And we went to the Hollywood Bowl, open dress rehearsal when they had them. And we saw a guy by the name of John Williams. And there was only maybe 10 people in the audience. And he started out, dun, 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 dun. I said, this is the coolest job in the world. I have no idea what he's doing or what this is, but the music just spoke to me. And, John has inspired so many, classical and film musicians. But for me, that was the beginning of, I think I could do this, and let me get the tools to try. And I was taken. I was totally obsessed, actually, after that. And then, my parents would even say I would conduct. I would listen and record the TV. I'm old enough to remember, cassette tapes. I'd record it on my cassette tape. These commercials with the film music, particularly Forrest Gump or any of the John Williams stuff, or any classical. My grandfather listened to a lot of opera. I would record it on my cassette tape, go listen to it in bed, and fall asleep, just waving my hands.
Conducting.
I was meant to do it from a young age.
I love it. Well, and sometimes you never know how you're going to find your passion and where you want to be and how you want to get there. One of the things that we do with all of our arts and cultural groups in our region, and the arts groups tend to do this overall, is try to make as many connections with young people and in the schools to make sure that the arts are in the schools so that you have an opportunity as someone growing up in New Haven, Connecticut, to all of a sudden have a moment that says, this is where I need to be. And I think had it not been for your participation in singing and other things, you may not have found that step along the way. It's really interesting.
Absolutely true. And, music education is close and near and dear to my heart, Jim. And, we say these as cliche, the future of music is in the next generation, but it truly is. And I was, so fortunate with great mentors. My first piano and singing teacher when I was doing the plays in school and the choir director, those folks were instrumental then going to college in sort of guiding me, saying, you could do this, and that, that is irreplaceable, I think, because like you said, had I not had that focus and direction, I might have just had a regular job. For me, there's nothing wrong with that, but for me, this is a vocation. It's like as important as the air I breathe. It doesn't feel like a job,
Well, if you can feel like you're just doing what you want to every day, you're never going to work. You're always living your dream out there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how did the connection with Venice, Florida come to you since you were out there in California doing your thing then? What made that connection happen?
Well, it wasn't anything specific other than I saw a job opening. I was at the time the music director of the Juneau Symphony in Alaska.
Living in Southern California.
Exactly, which is actually not that far. So I've literally been all over the United States doing this for a while. But my contract was up there. I loved Juneau. I had a wonderful time, great folks there, and we built a lot there as well. But my contract was coming to a close. They had me, they wanted me there for 3 more years. And then I thought, well, the weather is a little better in Florida. And I had taken Juneau as far as I could. And so I saw the potential for that in Venice, and I saw it was certainly a bigger organization, and the leadership had been in place to make something great, and the offer was there. So I was intrigued, and I went down and did the audition, and then I really fell in love with it and the people and the community. And Sarasota County, I had not been to Sarasota or Venice or anywhere on the west coast of Florida, and I just fell in love with it. I'm a beach guy, and I love it as my second home, so to speak, Jim. The arts are so thriving, as you know, and the amount of people and talent we're able to pull because of that, the location we're in, is also attractive for a guy like me that's used to working in Hollywood and with top talent. So that was important that we could acquire that. And having not only the financial strength, but the audience development. When we stopped stopped performances in 2019, 2020, we had sold out 16 of 17 concerts, unheard of.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
So it didn't take much to convince me.
Yeah. As I was reading up on your background, one of the comments was made is that you are considered to be one of the most versatile young artists of your generation. And I get to call you young still, okay? I know you do 8-track tapes.
I still feel young.
How does, from a mindset point of view, all of us have our skills, the things we do. I see you're going back and forth between conducting orchestras, working with television scripts. I think you were involved with Glee for a while. How do you assimilate that all in your mind and make it come out as productive on all its sides?
You have to be extremely organized, which I am, Jim.
Yeah.
But, it's, to me, music is good or bad. There's no, I don't delineate with these boundaries for genres. I like to cross the boundaries, and that's what I do in my programming wherever I am. And it seems to be successful. It's not without its controversy. We'll do Beethoven 5 and Freddie Mercury on the same concert. We just did Brahms 4, and we did Beach Boys tunes and Haydn Trumpet Concerto with Tom Hooten, LA Philharmonic Trumpet. Yeah. To me, people respond to that because it's different than the symphony, overture, concerto formula. Nothing wrong with that. I do that, but I don't do that every concert. And good music is good music. I'm surrounded by it in various worlds that I work in. And I just think, that's my interest too. It's like Stravinsky said, I say this all the time, I think he's being pretty facetious. He said, I never understood a bar of music in my life, but I sure did feel it. Now, Stravinsky didn't know what was going on. We're all in trouble. But his point is that what was good or bad, tonal, atonal, was something that was felt. And that's very subjective. I think our audiences feel whether it's a good piece or not. And I'm able to separate myself from Troy the musician as Troy the private citizen to say, all right, if I wasn't a musician, because I didn't grow up playing music since I was 5, and I can separate myself to say, would the average listener like this? And that's the hat I put on when I'm programming, Jim. So for me, I try to assimilate all the genres, and that it's good or bad. And if it passes the barometer of good, it could be Shostakovich or Adele. And that's the great thing about what I do.
Yeah, I love it. I love the thought process. I've always been intrigued over the years at the number of, for example, rock musicians who don't read music. They feel the music, but they can't read it. And I think that gets to be part of what stimulates all of our souls through the arts, whatever the art may be, is that connection with our inner selves and how it makes us feel.
One of my mantras, Jim, and really what I'm trying to do as a still fairly young person, is I'm trying to bring music, classical, popular, whatever, to the masses, as many people as I can, to fall in love with it as much as I have. Yeah. Not unlike people who have done that before on a great scale, like Bernstein, who's sitting behind me there, and many other people, Dudamel. But to me, I can be a gateway into that, because most of my generation will come to it from a more popular genre. They're not going to sit down normally and listen to Beethoven 5 and say how great it is. Now, they may, if we get them in there with a John Williams piece or something else, like I came to it. I didn't hear Beethoven before I was in high school and starting college when I went to the Rhode Island Philharmonic and heard Larry Radcliffe play it and thought, this is the greatest thing now. Now I get what it's all about. But it's exposure to it. Everybody loves classical music. They just don't know it yet,
Yeah. Well, I noticed you said earlier that you are currently on the faculty at the University of Southern California, and is it the Thornton School?
It
there?
is. Yeah.
If you were to have, because I know that many of our people in our audience are also young people who are out there listening and looking, and if you were to give a message to, say, your students at USC there about their thoughts and the way that they would approach whatever it is they want to do, you've pretty well said your philosophy, but are there messages that you would like to bring to young potential artists in the world out there?
Absolutely, Jim. And I'm living proof of it. I didn't, the well-kept secret is I didn't even read music until I got to college. 18, very late. Yeah. I had the pitch. I had the near photographic memory. I had all of that, and I didn't realize it because I didn't know I was given whatever humble gifts I was given until I got into exposure and started learning things. So it's never too late. And you're not going to have success without failure. I keep saying that to my students and every young person I come in contact with. How do you get started? How do you do it? And it's a difficult journey, obviously timing, but the preparation for being ready is when your opportunity comes. So, working, there's no replacement for hard work. But the other thing I would also say is have this total abandon over what you need to do in terms of being so focused on it that you can't live without it. And if you answer that and you say, well, I can't live without it because I don't want to sacrifice, or I'm not sure I want to struggle or eat tuna fish or live in a cardboard box for a month. I mean, if it's not as important to you as the air you breathe, it's going to be very difficult to make it. My teacher always used to say, the great Mark Oswald from the Metropolitan Opera, there's 1,000 Pavarottis out there, but they don't have the drive, the desire, or the preparation to actually make it. And so I think the persistent ones do. I'm certainly not the most talented person in the world, but I have enough gifts. First of all, you need the chops at a certain level. And secondly, you need the right attitude and the right perseverance to try to make it. And so if you're a working musician right now, making a full-time living as a musician, that's successful in my estimation. But I would tell young people that I can do it, and I had nothing. So, I started from nothing.
Well, it's very interesting. I don't know if you've met Dr. Larry Thompson, who's the president of the Ringling College of Art and Design here in Sarasota. But yeah, Larry's a good friend of mine and is on my board of directors, like Christine is from Venice Symphony. And his mantra over the last several years has been that he is in business to dispel the concept of the starving artist, that you can be an art and you can make a living at it and you can do what you love if you do some of the things that you just illuminated. You've got to pay the price no matter what. And obviously you've mastered that fairly well to this point in your life, I think.
Well, we all pay our dues, but the secret too, Jim, is that I think this is a high risk activity. It's high risk business, low chance of return, expensive schooling, years of training, like a athlete, personal relationships sometimes suffer, injury. It's all of these things that normal people would say, why are you going to go into that when you can just be comfortable having a normal life or doing something that's not so high risk? But the reward is so high that I think it's worth it in the end if you have that mentality. That's my thinking. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you as a guy who was a whole lot older than you and took a completely different path, but I would share with anybody, if you're not living your passion and doing what you love to do or trying to do it, then you're missing out on what life's all about. It's really the journey that gets you there. There's very little instant success in life,
Absolutely. Very, very true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Let me shift gears for a moment because you mentioned earlier your experience, short, interrupted a bit with the Venice Symphony. And I recall many, many years in working with the group. They've always been until you came, about the time you came on, a really good community symphony orchestra. and did good work. Like many community orchestras, everybody's up and down at some point. The Sarasota Orchestra went through the same stages a few years earlier, but now you are essentially, and you are fully, a professional orchestra. How did that happen? How were we able to get these professional musicians to Venice, Florida?
Well, a couple of things. Having the right leadership in place is important, and the board's commitment to what I wanted to do. I said, I'm not the guy for this if you just want to remain the way you are. And kudos to them that they didn't. And, we look to Sarasota, of course, and TFO as our sort of, barometer, because I think we're very close to that now. And it only took 3 years. I mean, we were able to do it because the quality of the player, we've upped the rate of pay to be exactly with competitive, the base rate with Sarasota and TFO. That's unheard of, Jim.
It is.
Because they're full-time orchestras. So we are not. But our schedule also allows us to get some of these great players. And we use a lot of, people when they're available from Sarasota and TFO. But we've also developed our own people coming out as far from Miami at the Frost School, all the way up from Tallahassee. We're drawing, and even Orlando. We're drawing from the whole state. And there's two things that, I think necessitated that. Number one is the thirst for it. We have an incredible audience and support system. We've been raising more money and having more sold out performances than anybody in Florida. That's sort of incredible. We would love that. Most orchestras would love to have the problem of that. We have the advantage of having a beautiful hall at VPAC. At the Venice Performing Arts Center, we have our own place. We get to rehearse there and perform there. And also people's excitement about building something, not unlike, as you say, that the Sarasota Orchestra went through a decade ago.
Sure.
And so that's exciting for people to be on board with. And I think they just needed the right leader in terms of the music leader to do that. It's not everybody's interest. Some people like to come in. When I work with bigger orchestras around the country, it's very rewarding. I conducted the Los Angeles Chamber Orchestra, Rochester, Rhode Island, or what have you. You come right in, everybody plays great, you do your concert and leave. And there is some aspect that's rewarding to building something that's your baby from the ground up. And this wasn't even a ground up project, but it certainly has been the fastest growth financially and artistically of any organization I've ever been involved with. And, that's exciting to me. The other aspect why it was able to come on so quickly is because, while we aren't a union orchestra, we act like a union orchestra. We have contracts. These folks are part-time independent contractors, but we treat them as if they are, employees. And so I think that's an important thing, that the musicians feel valued, and we're doing things like a union orchestra would. And the repertoire is exciting. Nobody else has, I think, the programming we have. And I hear that from patrons all the time. That may ostracize a couple of folks, but the 95% of people that are loving it, that's sort of our secret weapon. And I think it starts from the top down. And we've been able to really expedite it quickly because of all those elements happening at once. And I say it's not a one-man show. It's the support, of course, of our executive director, Dana Kimball, our wonderful, artistic operations and personnel manager, and the board leadership. That is really important to us.
Well, I think that's one of the things that our audience knows and that we see on the West Coast of Florida. Because of the tradition of the arts here, we have been very fortunate to attract citizens here who are well-rounded in the arts, and they understand the importance of support, of being donors, of providing volunteer time. And we really, none of our organizations could do it without the people that support them. And I see that in spades where you are there in Venice with the organization that you all have been able to pull together.
Indeed, it's absolutely true. From the volunteers at VPAC to the ushers to our whole staff, it's certainly not a one-man show. It looks that way at when it comes concert time, but I have an incredible team. And Jim, my philosophy is always put better people around you, so we
Of
have.
course. Absolutely. Well, it's interesting. Before you came on, you may have heard Marie and me mention an event that she organized and put together for the Northport, Venice, Charlotte County community the other night. And one of the guests at that event was a gentleman who had been involved heavily in the school district in Sarasota for many, many, many years. And he was one of the ones responsible for forming the idea of a VPAC and of the Northport Concert Hall there at their high school, being able to put high quality performance venues into the community so that people have the opportunity. I mean, you could have the greatest orchestra in the world, but if you're in a barn or a shed, it's not going to be the same sound. And I think that type of foresight on the part of Gene Witt and others has really helped us here. And I'm glad to hear that you're happy with what you're getting from the Venice Performing Arts Center there.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a draw for somebody like me as an out-of-town person to get and attract this high-level talent, because you've got wonderful facilities. I mean, that's important. And it's the same thing with the orchestra. I think if the orchestra didn't have the potential and have things set when I came in, it wouldn't be as attractive to a candidate or of a certain level, let's just say.
Right. Yeah. Very accomplished, but you're still a young man, which is a wonderful thing. But what is it like to be able to have to try to pull together a group, but probably of varying ages, of professional level musicians who come from very diverse geographical backgrounds? It's not like you can set the football team down and make them a football team. You've got to be able to build that camaraderie. How do you go about that?
Well, and it's tough, because still I'm usually one of the youngest people in the group. So it's, sometimes you do get, what's this young whippersnapper going to tell me about Beethoven 5 I don't already know? Yeah. I try to make it, Jim, and, I just do my thing. I make it about the music. The music is my sacred text. So if I jump, yell, get crazy energetic, demand something, it's all based on the music. And I think, musicians respond to that. They can see that and tell that within 30 seconds. Actually, the League of American Orchestras did an interesting study, I don't know, a decade or two ago, about how quickly an orchestra judges you. And it's about 30 seconds to a minute on whether they're you really talk about first impressions and timing. You have very little time. But if I make it about the music, and I know the music cold, which, I don't think anybody that's played for me would ever argue that, then the respect comes from that. So it's hard to pull everybody together, coming for 80 different people. We can't even get 2 people to agree on something sometimes.
That's right.
So, but the greatest parallel for the orchestra is really you giving up your own opinion for the good of the whole. You're a cog in the wheel, and that doesn't mean you don't matter. But there has to be one sort of dominating opinion to make it all work. And I certainly take everybody's thoughts into context and opinions. And at the end of the day, we have to do it one way, of course. So. But I think I try to do it with grace and with humility, that it's about the music and not me or anybody else, and that let that carry through.
That's all. It's always the key. Well, you mentioned a little earlier your passion for programming, and every comment that I hear and that most of us in the community hear about what's been going on with the Venice Symphony. It's really the quality and diversity of the programming. And that really falls on your shoulders. So, you've got a great rounded background in voice and in music, but when you stop and think about putting together a program, how do you do that? How does that happen?
It's the single most important part of my job, Jim. And, I'll only take a little credit for it because it does all fall on me. And it's nothing rocket science. This has been going on. One of my great, mentors that I just from a distance had always been impressed by was, Fiedler and the Boston Pops. Yep. And the folks over there and what they're doing, Keith Lockhart and Dennis Alves with the programming, I've always looked to that. And John Williams, who was there in the 80s as the conductor. But I, of course, the Hollywood Bowl as well. But trying to marry the two, the classical world and this popular film world. I mean, again, to me, I try to sit down with an idea of what piece would be great or what guest artist would be great. I don't simply work with a theme and then try to make it work.
Yeah.
Where I'm going to do Mahler 1 and we're going to try to do some things around it. You know, I really try to take some time, and luckily my connections and you know, working in this industry in LA has afforded me the great opportunity to make some connections with some of these great film composers like Bill Conti and John Williams, where I was able to get some of the music that's unpublished from their personal library. You know, when we did the concert, my audition concert in Venice, Glenn Dictorow, former New York Philharmonic concertmaster, came down and played John Williams solos that were only made for Itzhak Perlman. They weren't performed ever outside the recording. And I asked John if I could use them, and you know, he said, "Well, I'll do it for Glenn." And so, you know, same thing with Bill Conti. I have had a relationship with him over the years, just reaching out and wanting to perform some of these folks who are still living. By the way, also classical composers, not just film, but living composers. And you'd be surprised, Jim, on some of these cold calls that they would be, yeah, we want to hear our music played, even though they may be famous. And so I was bold enough to sort of do that. So a lot of these arrangements, due to our personal relationships, are never heard anywhere else. You know, and if I can't get it, I'll try to go to the source. I'm a purist in that way. So that's, I mean, for Beethoven and Brahms, we don't have that issue. We've got the critical sources. But for living composers, I think that's what makes my programming unique from other folks, you know. And certainly there are great conductors doing that who have do their own orchestrations. But I'm always a purist in trying to get the original.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I'm struck by the interesting fact that you do have a really good foundation in the classical arts in that genre, but also such a good foundation in the Hollywood set of music conducting, you know, which is what so many people, even of my generation and younger, I mean, that's what they know is music. You know, they love Beethoven, they love Brahms, but they hear the movies and all of that. So I think to be able to have a foot in both worlds probably gives you a wonderful edge that not everybody has.
I think it does, Jim. You know, I mean, everybody's trying to pigeonhole you, which is why it's hard for me to get pigeonholed. Because, oh, are you a pops guy? Are you a classical guy? Are you a Hollywood guy? And I like to say I'm a jack of all trades guy. That's what I am. And you know, the bottom line is Korngold, Copland, Bernstein, all these great classical composers also wrote for film. I mean, Max Steiner, all of them came over from Eastern Europe. And all of those film composers are deeply rooted in the classical genre. So, you know, classical is the meat and potatoes of what we do. I love playing Mahler. I mean, or Brahms, nothing greater for me. But that doesn't necessitate that anything is of lesser value. It's just a different skill set. So I like to celebrate both. And I think being a 21st century musician, and getting back to what I would also say to young people, is trying to do multiple things and do it well. I get hired a lot, like you said, to, you know, be in TV or film and play or sing a couple of to hold a long C for 8 minutes, whatever it is. And that might not be the most artistically rewarding thing, but all your training, I think, leads you up to this point where you can do it and do it well. And I think that's valuable because, you know, same thing with jazz. It's very rare we get. I mean, some of the greatest musicians I know are well versed in both. Yo-Yo Ma, Wynton Marsalis. These guys can do anything, and these jazz cats can play and improvise and do classical. See, classical musicians sometimes are so uber focused on one thing, and it's great if you can play all the viola, Walton concerto. But if that's all you can do, you're not going to make a career and a living in this 21st century. And that's what I learned very quickly, and that's why I'm very busy.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting. One of the things that we do here at the Alliance in Sarasota is when things are more normal is we have an entire program that's geared to getting younger professionals involved in the arts. We get them together in groups, and we go to programs at the opera and the symphony and the theater and so on. But always in that generation, it's wow. I love it because I could hear all of it. I heard the modern stuff. I'm familiar with this, and I think as we in the arts look at continuing the success of the arts and continuing attracting audiences through the generations, we have to stay on top of things. You can't just say all in one mold and expect people to jump on that mold. It's not going to happen.
Absolutely, Jim. I mean, and it's like I said, this is nothing new. Bernstein was doing it with his young people concerts 60 years ago. He'd take a Beatles tune, which was so popular with the kids at the time, and then break down the choral structure and say, well, here's how Stravinsky did it. It's a little different sounding, but I think that still holds true today. Now, how we disseminate that information has changed, and that's I think the most important thing. Now we're having interdisciplinary concerts with visuals, programs on cell phones, because people's attention spans have changed.
Right.
The greatness of the music hasn't changed. The way we present it has.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to jump back over into your personal situation for a moment. Not too personal, but, I noticed you've got a concert coming up here in Venice at the end of February, 25th, 26th. Today you're in Los Angeles, and then you're going to be back in Venice sometime in March. From a family point of view, how long do you have to come to Venice before that concert at the end of February to really put it together?
Well, it happens pretty quickly in a matter of 4 days, actually, Jim.
Yeah.
And I do spend time basically during the week there and talking to various groups and individuals and fundraising and donor development and interviews and all the like. But certainly you've got to be flexible and and have an understanding family. I love traveling, and these spurts are sporadic. It's not like I'm gone for 3 months of the year. I come and go, and so it's very doable that way in terms of scheduling. With teaching on top of it, it's more difficult, of course, because that's more of a set schedule. But I love traveling the world and performing. So, and while I'm still young, I intend to do it.
Yeah. Now, I'm assuming that there obviously must be a concertmaster, someone who can convene the orchestra routinely as you're approaching a concert, for them to play together and pull together. Do you balance that with your staff? How does that happen?
Well, we have the best concertmaster, I think, in South Florida. Marcus Ratzenbeck is our concertmaster, well known in the area, and he also has a wonderful background in both. He was the principal second violin of the Louisville Orchestra, and he also was a rock star violinist for Tantric, and so he's very similar to my background. And he and I work very closely together, along with the other principals and leaders of the orchestra. But I also work very closely with Dana Kimball, who's our artistic operations director and our personnel manager. So I'm working with these guys nearly daily on trying to get not only contracts, but talent and logistics and all of this sort of thing, and balancing that with the staff. So to answer your question, Jim, a lot of my day is spent on the phone and not with the scores,
Yeah, I can imagine. I know you do the bulk of your concerts in the Venice Performing Arts Center, but you have what looks like it's going to be a very exciting one coming up in May, where you're going to be performing at a baseball field. Tell us a little bit about that and what people can expect.
Sure. We started this initiative, I think the first year I came in maybe 2019 in the summer. And this is at Cool Today Park, the Atlanta Braves training field. And we've done this.
And say the world champion Atlanta Braves training field.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm a Boston Red Sox fan and an Atlanta Braves fan.
There you go.
But it's a wonderful concert, Jim, for those who have not been to a concert, classical, pops, or anything before. Not let alone Venice, but any type of concert. It's a very relaxed atmosphere. We've got the wonderful vendors and tiki bar and food offered, and it's 90 minutes of a great show with popular selections and an incredible talent at Cool Today Park that's joining us. And I'm very excited to get them because I grew up listening to them, Rockapella, and we're performing with us.
So maybe for our audience, give them a little insight as to who is Rockapella and how,
Sure.
what.
Rockapella is a wonderful a cappella group that has been around world class. Since the 90s, maybe even late 80s. I'm going to date myself because I remember watching Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego as a kid. And they were the a cappella group on that started that song, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, made them fairly famous. And they performed with the Boston Pops for the 4th of July concerts on national television. They've had a world-class career. They're still one of the original members. Scott is still there. And I'm so excited to perform with them. They've got all these great arrangements. Many they've done with the Boston Pops before. We're going to have these original arrangements from Rockapella. So we'll do a first set. The orchestra will do a second set with Rockapella. And
That's exciting.
It's going to be exciting.
And, if our audience wanted to be able to get tickets to that, are they available through your website or through the Braves website? How would that happen?
That's a great question, and I should know the answer to that. But what I'm going to do is point everybody to our website, and Allison Posner-Williams, who takes care of our ticket sales, or Sharon Lonsdale, Director of Marketing, can get you more information about that. They haven't gone on sale yet. I do know that, Jim, but they will, and I think they go through the Cool Today Park site as well.
I think you're right about that. Yeah, I didn't want to throw you a trick question, but I wanted people to know that they're being in Cool Today Park. There should be ample tickets available, and it sounds like one of those shows that people do not want to miss. And so I think that's a great collaboration here.
And some people, Jim, your listeners may be wondering, well, a cappella, isn't that without instruments? That's just voices, which it is. However, it's an interesting concept because I wasn't sure our sound was going to fit theirs or vice versa. And luckily the answer to that was yes, they've done this before. And it's sort of a cacophony of sound where our voices just fit into theirs. And so they'll be doing all the vocals and we'll be backing them up. So it will be still a cappella on their own, but with an orchestra in the back. So
that sounds like an exciting program. It really does. And I have to tell you, when you mentioned New Haven, my son went to and graduated from Yale. And my first big introduction to a cappella groups was the Yale, the Whip and Poof, and all those guys while they were there. But so you were right in the heart of some of that stuff growing up too, huh?
Absolutely. Nobody in my family went to Yale, including myself, but we all worked at Yale. My whole family. Actually.
Yeah,
so we saw a lot of concerts over the years.
Yeah. What's next for the Venice Symphony? Looking ahead, what do you think is going to be your direction, you and your board and your staff? Where will you be headed?
Well, I think the sky's the limit at this point, Jim. I mean, we're wanting to be the best regional orchestra in the South. We're not full-time, and I think we're on our way to doing that in Florida, at least. Sarasota, Orlando, Jacksonville, Naples, TFO. They're all full-time groups, great orchestras. I think we can be right up there, and maybe not full-time, of course. That's not our intention. But to bring the highest quality music right in the backyard of South Sarasota County, you don't have to go anywhere else. You don't even have to go to Boston. I think we've got it right here. And, we're trying to still continue to grow and stretch the orchestra, not only with repertoire, but with the talent we bring in. And one of our goals, Jim, just to finally mention, is that we're trying to bring this to the communities outside of VPAC as well. We're going to be doing more run-out concerts and outreach, and part of the Cool Today Park. Fits into our initiative to bring this to the masses. And sky's the limit. So watch out for the Venice Symphony.
Love it. Marie, while we have you on here, I want to mention that one of the things that you have been trying to do and working so hard at is making sure that the southern part of the county and Charlotte County understands the quality of the arts and the access we have. And to have that right there in Venice and in Cool Today Park, which is right on the border between Venice and Northport, amazingly available to our audience. And it's great, high-quality music run by one of the brightest young professionals in the business today. And Troy, I can't thank you enough for being on with us. You've enlightened us all.
It's my pleasure, Chip. Thank you, and thank you, Marie. It's been a joy.
Well, I'm not letting you go yet. We have a few minutes. I had to pop on here because I'm really interested.
Oh, good.
In fact, you gifted us, the Venice Symphony gifted us to do in our auction 2 tickets to the Cool Today event. And I just wanted to let the audience know that the tickets do not go on sale till March 10th.
Right.
And I do believe that they'll be on the Venice Symphony website. And also, if you have more than 10 people that are going to be coming with your group, here's a phone number for you to call: 941-207-8822. And you'll get to meet the lovely, well, maybe you won't get to meet him. He'll be hiding out in the back. No, I don't know where you go. But the music director, Troy Quinn, will be there. And a special guest, the Rockapella Group. And wow, that's actually quite an accomplishment to get them to, be at the stadium there too. And also I had brought up on the screen here of what you do have going on that was sent to me.
Yes.
And you do have a concert coming up now. Will you be the one that's doing that, though?
Oh, yes, I will, Marie. We so far I do most all the concerts, and we have this really exciting one. I'll just plug a sec. This is probably my favorite concert in the whole time I've been here, and you're not going to want to miss it. It's the most unique, a tribute night at the Oscars concert. On the 4th and 5th, we've got 3 performances, but 2 are basically sold out. So Saturday night at 7:30 on February 5th is still available, I know. There's a few tickets for the Friday night on February 4th at 7:30. Eric Rigler, world-renowned piper. Now, that's a thing you don't hear as a soloist every day. Bagpiper, Julian Piper, and penny whistle, tin whistle player who played with Celine on the original recording on Titanic and Braveheart, will be coming to play his beloved tracks. We're playing all the original music. I busted out all of the connections from Bill Conti to John Williams. Some of this stuff has not been heard since 1975 when Rocky first came out. We're doing everything from Forrest Gump to La La Land, all the original arrangements. It's going to be gangbusters with some film clips included.
You know what? And the culture around here, actually, north of us, from Northport, north of Northport, up in Venice and that, because they're an older city. And I know that you probably know the history. And how far are you from Venice, California? Because
only 20 minutes.
Yeah, and there's an Englewood, California, too, right by you there.
That's right. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, and when I go to Venice and we don't have an LA, but when you throw the 2 together, I think there's a draw for Troy to come to Venice, the Englewood, the Sarasota area. There's a draw there, I'll tell you. Truthfully, Troy, I know what it takes to actually put together things like that and to get the mindset. And you do have to have a leader. You have to have somebody with vision to see the end game. And a lot of times people try to get there and they need that one person, that one connection, that one person that really sees the vision. And if you're going to get there, you'll get people to follow you.
Absolutely.
And they'll pull from every other area to get to the main goal. And the goal is to have the best orchestra that everybody wants to hear.
Well, as a conductor, Marie, the one thing I'll say that's very true about that is I don't make a sound. I rely on my inspirational power for everybody to play their best. So that is like a requirement for my job, that you've got to inspire 80 people to play their best, no matter what day they're having, no matter what their personal situation is, and lead that group. And I don't take that job lightly. It's a privilege. It is.
Yeah. You bring your game to the stage. You leave everything else behind.
That's right.
Right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today to listen to Jim Shirley, our guest, Troy Quinn, today. I'm Marie LaBrosse, your host for Kaleidoscope of the Arts, coming to you from the WKDW 97.5 FM Rural Community Radio out of Northport, Florida. You've been listening to us on the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower. Thank you. Have a great day. And remember to be kind. You have choices in life. One of them is to be kind or not to be kind. Let's make this world a better place and be kind. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.